Colosseum. This game was originally published by Days of Wonder. Now we have a new edition by TMG. Not a big box, I mean regular size, but a very heavy one, full of cardboard, wood, and metal even, and you'll see what I mean. In Colosseum, players take on the role of ancient Roman impresarios, and they are recruiting actors, gladiators, buying horses, hiring musicians, and doing all that they can to put together some of the best possible shows for the Roman aristocrats. And based on how many people you'll be able to attract to your shows, you will score points, and that is how you will win the game, by creating the shows that will attract the most attention, will give you more prestige, etc, etc. I'm gonna show you how the game works. Little caveat, I have not played the original edition, so I will not be able to compare, but if you know the previous edition, then by seeing my video I think you'll be able to do all of the contrast and compare that you need. Colosseum, let's take a closer look. The board for the game, which you see before your very eyes, is very nice looking, very colorful. Production values are very good. Look, for example, at those nobles, those miniatures of the nobles, various Roman nobles that you will want to attend the shows that you are putting together. Also, I love these pieces here that represent the arenas that the players control. Look how nice they are. They have to be some of the strangest looking game pieces that I've seen, but they work very well because the nobles will walk around and they can still stop by your arena. Actually, there is even the possibility of enlarging your arena by buying these extra tiles here, so that it'll be more likely that they'll fall in your trap, they'll stop by your shows, but also that you will be able to put together larger shows for better profit. Really nice map, nice board there in the middle. You have an area with various markets or tiles that are placed there randomly. There is a group of tiles that is placed there at the beginning, and many more tiles will come out of this bag later during the game. Players also receive an initial allocation of these tiles that represent the resources that you're collecting to be able to put together certain shows. Now you have a player aid here, which is very important because each turn has many steps and many phases. There are only 5 turns in the game, but each, well, will take a little bit, and that's good, otherwise the game wouldn't last long enough. So it's a very good, very well done player aid, and around and on your player aid you will place your own resources. You will place these cards here, which represent the shows that you're trying to put together. On the back it shows the size of the arena that you need to have. You start with an arena with 2 slots, and then you may enlarge your arena, and that will allow you to get larger shows that you will try to organize during the game. Also, coins. Forget paper money or plastic tokens. These coins are coins. They're actually made of metal. They are a thing of beauty. Yes, the numbers are in Latin or Roman numbers. I don't think that's going to be much of a problem for many people, but just the beauty, so evocative, so fun, definitely. And heck, you can even use them, I don't know, for fantasy games, for your LARP games. So, how does the game work? How does a round work? Well, first a round starts with the investing phase. In the investing phase, the players can make exactly one investment unless they have a special resource that allows them to break the rules. That is, they can, as their investment, they can spend money to buy one of these tiles, therefore enlarging their arena. They may also buy a season ticket, which may be placed by their arena, and that will give them extra visitors. They may buy the Emperor's trampoline. That's what it is. That's what the Emperor uses to do trust falls. That's exactly how it happened. It's true. Period. That's my source. It's true. See, he did it already. So you can buy that. What else can you buy? Oh yes, you can also buy new events. You have these stacks of events that you can organize, but you need to buy them. They can be pretty expensive. You start with some basic events, later you'll want to buy some more advanced events, and save up and collect resources to then buy and organize the most articulate events. Then players will collect assets represented by these tokens here. To put together an event, you need to have access to the tokens that you see on the event that you're trying to organize, or at least to have access to as many as possible, and that's where you collect new stuff. So players will bid, there is an auction mechanic here, will bid to take control of those markets, so they will collect sets of tokens that will be replaced by other tokens from an initial pool of initial tokens at the beginning, or from the baggie that I showed you later in the game. Players bid, players collect, acquire those tokens, paying money to do so. Then there is a trading phase, because you collect, when you win an auction, you take the tokens in sets, and so maybe you got some tokens that you don't need, and the players have tokens that you do need. So this is the phase after the auction when players trade, and it's very, very free form. I give you something, you want something else, we're gonna discuss, negotiate, we can trade money, we can trade the goods, we cannot trade future promises. Whatever we decide to exchange needs to be paid for now. After that, finally, it is the time when we do get to produce our event. So we choose an event that we're trying to produce, and we demonstrate that we have all or a lot of the necessary resources. For example, to produce this guy here, we'll need two musicians, and a scenery. Well, what the heck? It just so happens I can't find one right now. And that's interesting too, because if you have all of the tokens necessary, then you get to score that number of points, or in game terms, attract the number of spectators. I hope that means at least 100 spectators, not 700. But if some tokens are missing, then you get the corresponding value. For example, here I'm missing a musician, then I score 5 points or spectators instead of 7. However, during this phase, you also get to score other things. During this phase, you also get to roll one of these dice. If you purchase the Emperor's Trampoline, that affects the nobles, so you'll get to roll 2 dice. Whether you roll 1 or 2 in this phase, the number that you roll is used to move aristocrats on the board. And for example, I use this 3 here to do 1, 2, 3. Hooray, now the guy is in my area. I'm trying to move them in my area, in my arena. I'm trying to move people out of your arenas, possibly. And also I'm trying to move aristocrats on the starting spaces, because that gives me an advantage, that gives me an Emperor's Medal, which is a token that I can use to purchase several advantages. So first I move my guys, then I produce a show, scoring that number of points. But I say you score also other points. You score points for the aristocrats / nobles that are at your show. Also, there are these tokens here, which are the star performers. If you have at least 3 tokens of a category and more than anybody else, say I have 3 and no one else has 3, then I get the corresponding star performer. There's a star performer token for each category, say gladiators, lions, tigers, singers, and so on and so forth. As you can see, if you have that token by having the majority and at least 3, then when it's time to put together a show, you also get that bonus there. You get a bonus of +5 spectators. If you have the season's ticket, you can convert the Emperor's Medal into points. So various sources of points. A player will also get the podium, and then players get podiums at the end of a show, and they can score those podiums, use them to gain extra points. later in the game. Also, previous shows that you produced will go face down in your play area, and they also count as extra points. That means that your reputation grows. So when you have all of those points, suppose that after I put together all of the factors, I have a total of 20 spectators or points, then I take my scoring marker and I put it on the corresponding space on the score track, if and only if that number that I scored this turn is higher than the number that I scored before. You say next turn I score 15, I don't move my marker back to 15, it stays at 20. The marker there always indicates the highest, the best attendance that you got for one of your shows. And so you're always trying to improve yourself. That's very good. That's a good way to encourage you to get better and better. After players have produced their events, there is a phase which is called the closing ceremony, which you need to do a couple of other functions. For example, the assets that you use to put together a show, they're not all safe for next turn. You have to discard one. The leading player earns a podium that will be used next time to score more points. The player in the last place will graciously ask for a gift from the player that is in the lead, and the player has to accept. The player has to give one of their assets as the player that is in last place requires, and that ends the turn, and you repeat the procedure. So summarizing, there are a lot of phases. You invest by improving your arena, building stuff, etc., or getting new contract, getting new shows. Then you acquire new tokens, then people trade, people produce their events, do a little bit of upkeeping during the closing ceremony, and that's how it works. That's how it works for 5 turns. At the end of 5 turns, the player with the highest total victory points is the winner of the game. The components for this game are spectacular, nothing short of spectacular. I love those little arenas with those windows so that the senators can walk through them. Metal coins, those are impressive. I love the details, such as the painting, the faces, illustration on the meeples of the Roman aristocrats. Maybe it should be meepoli because it's Latin. So the components are really excellent. One thing is there's a lot of them, a lot of components. So to set up the game and take it down takes quite a while, especially if you're doing it by yourself. And this may just be me. When I have a game that I may place, I like to set up the game in advance in the afternoon so that when the guests come, I only need to teach it and we can get started a little more easily, a little faster. But the minus is that I have to set it up all by myself in the afternoon, and this one took me quite a while. Won't be a problem in many groups that set up the game together at the beginning of game night. Also, the minimum number of players is 3, so that is it's not a minus, it's a trait. It's a trait that will work better in some environments than others. I like games that start with 2, so there is more flexibility, more chances to play them. On the other hand, you see that there's an auction mechanic, and that rarely works well with only 2 players. So pluses and minuses. I mean, as a 3+ player games, the games works well, which actually is what ultimately matters. I may play a little less often, but if I have fun when I play it, that is still good. And the game is really good, surprisingly so. In a sense, gameplay made me think of the game Trajan by Stefan Feld, and not so much because of the Roman theme, but because that game almost felt like a collection of mini-games. There is an element of Mancala, other parts of the board work in different ways in Trajan. And here in Colosseum, also I feel like I'm playing several games that come out of the box. Okay, now we do an auction. Hooray! Now we're gonna do trading. Hey! Now we're gonna collect sets and try to match them. Yay! Now we do roll and move. Roll and move. I'm 40. I don't play roll and move games anymore. Just games that have a roll and move mechanic. I'm like vampires. Roll and moves when they see the sunlight. But it works because there's so many things you can do here to affect how the roll will go and the move will go. But what is surprising really is that all of these elements at the end of the day do go well together. So the first turn or two, the game doesn't flow much because it feels like these chunks of the turn are very separate from one another. But then as the players become comfortable with the system, they start flowing one into the other. Also because it's very important that as you're taking one, as you're working on one element of the turn, you're clearly planning ahead, and that also increases the sense of flow, continuity. I'm buying something, and I don't know, and I'm buying something with in an auction. I know I won't be able to use everything, but I see maybe I'll be able to trade you this for that, etc., etc., etc. And of course, I want to do this to build a set and to get that advantage, etc., etc., etc. So I would say that the mechanical difference that is at the core of the various sections of the game makes it look like the game is a little disjointed, but that's not an impression that should last long. The game will soon click, and then actually all these parts miraculously, all these mini games, incredibly enough, go together, and then you have a fun experience. It's an experience that feels, I would say, intense. What I like is that the game also, one of the things that I like is that the game does not overstay its welcome. You can play it in about an hour. You may have players that do analysis paralysis, then just, I don't know, feed them to the lions just to remain in theme. But if players know what they're doing and they don't want to be a pain in the neck to everybody, the game flows well, and should be able to play it in about an hour. And in that hour, you feel like you've done a lot, like you've done a lot of stuff, precisely because you have worked on different mechanics that go together well, but your mind switches. Your mind constantly had to change emphasis and work in different ways. Look at the spatial element, look at the setting, look at the psychology, bluffing, trying to get you to bid too much. So it's not just that as mechanics, using the mechanics, you're doing different things manually. Is that, of course, you're switching mental perspectives, or you engage in constantly different tasks. So at the end of the game, which is easy to play in about an hour, you feel like you play for longer. You feel like it was a fairly deep experience. And also the progression, sense of progression is pretty good, and I think actually here strikes a good balance, because it's a sense of progression that precisely because it is contained, you are able to see, to perceive it. You start the first show and you're putting together just like a small show in your little arena with whatever you're able to cobble together for that event. And then of course you start building resources, and you start building momentum, and you really have the sense that by the fifth turn, which is only like 60 minutes from where you started, has just an impresario full of hopes, and with not much else, you become this powerful figure that is able to put together majestic shows, etc., etc. So I really like the fact that the contained nature of the role gameplay of a single game session emphasizes the sense of progression. And really, it's really a pleasure to see your company grow and build new things, and acquiring new abilities, new powers, and new ways of affecting things turn after turn. It's really great. It's really great. If anything, I was worried that it's gonna be one of those games that was gonna be over by the time it feels it should start. That is, games, oh, finally I built my city, I built my army, and I'm ready to attack, and that's when the game is over. Not here. You build your company, you get your superstars, you build your resources, and the game is over, but you do get the sense that that was not the preparation for something else, but that objective is fulfilling, is satisfying. So, very interesting game, very fun game. Surprisingly, maybe by reading the rulebook, I was like, what do these sections have to do with one another? What do these parts of the turn? Did they like misprint like different sections of rulebooks from different games? And yet it goes together in a game in which I would say the variety of gameplay is a strength. If you are, again, in the mood, if you are willing to do that, not to learn like one rule, like check checkers that you apply everywhere, but to switch. And then if you see that as a resource, if you see that as an advantage, as an extra challenge, to be able to plan in one section what you will do in the following section using a different strategy and using different mechanics. If you enjoy the kind of intellectual challenge, then look no further. Colosseum definitely will give you a challenge of that kind. It is a game that I found pleasantly challenging, full of interesting challenges, but not a brain burner in any sense. For example, in the way that Trajan is. That one is much more exhausting and demanding. Colosseum is a fun game. I would say it's not that light of a game. I don't even know that I would want to use it as a gateway game. I would say light, medium, or on the light side of medium, but not light per se. Colosseum, in any case, the components are spectacular, gameplay is solid and flows well, and definitely this is a game that I enjoyed and that I recommend.